How This Book Was Written and Why by Dale Carnegie. During the first 35 years of the 20th century, the publishing houses of America printed more than a fifth of a million different books. Most of them were deadly dull, and many were financial failures. Many, did I say? The President was one of the largest publishing houses in the world. The president of one of the largest publishing houses in the world confessed to me that his company, after 75 years of publishing experience, still lost money on 7 out of every 8 books it published. Why, then, did I have the temerity? Why, why then, did I have the temerity? Why then, did I have the temerity? Why then, did I have the temerity to write another book? And after I had written it, why should you bother to read it? Fair questions both, and I'll try to answer them. I have, since 1912, been conducting educational courses for business and professional men and women in New York. At first, I conducted courses in public speaking only, courses designed to train adults, by actual experience, to think on their feet and express their ideas with more clarity, more effectiveness, and more poise, both in business interviews and before groups. But gradually, as the seasons passed, I realized that it is sorely But gradually, as the seasons passed, I realized that as sorely as these adults But gradually, as the seasons passed, I realized that as sorely as these adults needed training in effective speaking, they needed still more training in the fine art of getting along with people in everyday business and social contacts. I also gradually realized that I was sorely in need of such training myself, and as I look back across the years, I am appalled at my own frequent lack of finesse and understanding. How I wish a book such as this had been placed in my hands 20 years ago. What a priceless, what a priceless boon that would have been. I also gradually realized that I was sorely in need of such training myself. As I look back across the years, I am appalled at my own frequent lack of finesse and understanding. How I wish a book such as this had been placed in my hand. How I wish such a book as this had been placed in my hands 20 years ago. What a priceless boon it would have been. Dealing with people is probably the biggest problem you face, especially if you are in business. Yes, and that is also true if you're a housewife, architect, or engineer. Research done a few years ago under the auspices of the Carnegie Foundation of the Advancement of Teaching uncovered a most important and significant fact. A fact later confirmed by additional studies made at the Carnegie Institute of Technology. These investigations revealed that even in such technical lines of as in, these investigation revealed that as These investigations revealed that even in such a technical line as engineering, about 15% of one's financial success is due to one's technical These investigations revealed that even in such technical lines as engineering, about 15% of one's financial success is due to one's technical knowledge, and about 85% is due to skill in human engineering, to personality. These investigations revealed that even in such technical lines as engineering, about 15% of one's financial success is due to one's technical knowledge, and about 85% is due to skill in human engineering, to personality, and the ability to lead people. For many years, I conducted courses each season at the Engineers Club of Philadelphia and also courses for the New York chapter of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. A total of probably more than 1,500 engineers have passed through my a total of probably a total of probably more than 1,500 engineers have passed through my class. They came to me because they had finally realized, after years of observation and experience, that the highest paid personnel in engineering are frequently not those who know the most about engineering. One can, for example, hire mere technical ability in engineering, accountability, architecture, or any other profession at nominal salaries. One can, for example, hire mere technical ability in engineering, accountancy, or architecture. One can, for example, hire a mere te- One can, for example, hire mere technically ability One can, for example, hire mere technical ability in engineering, accountancy, architecture, or any other profession at nominal salaries. But the person who has the technical knowledge plus the ability to express ideas and assume leadership and to arouse enthusiasm among people, that person is headed for higher earning power. In the heyday of his activity, John D. Rockefeller said that, quote, the ability to deal in the heyday of his activity, John D. Rockefeller said that the ability to deal with people is as purchasable a commodity as sugar or coffee, and I will pay more for that ability, said John D., than for any other under the sun. Wouldn't you suppose that every college in the land would conduct courses to develop the highest paid ability and Wouldn't you suppose that every college in the land would conduct courses to develop the highest priced ability under the sun? But if there was just one practical but if there was just one practical, common sense course of that kind given for adults in even one college in the land, it has escaped my attention up to the present writing. The University of Chicago and the United YMCA schools conducted a survey to determine what adults want to study. That survey cost $25,000 and took 2 years. The last part of the survey was made in Meridian, Connecticut. It had been chosen as a typical American town. Every adult in Meridian was interviewed and requested typical American. That survey cost $20,000 and took 2 years. The last part of the survey was made in Meridian, Connecticut. It had been chosen as a typical American town. Every adult in Meridian was interviewed and requested to answer 156 questions. Questions such as, what is your business or profession? Your education? How do you spend your spare time? What is your income? Your hobbies? Your ambitions? Your problems? What subjects are you most interested in studying? And so on. That survey revealed that health is the prime interest of adults, and that their second interest is people. How to understand and get along with people, how to make people like you, and how to win others to your way of thinking. So, the committee conducting this survey resolved to conduct such a course for adults in Meridian. They searched diligently for a practical textbook on the subject and found not one. Finally, they approached one of the world's outstanding authorities. Finally, they approached one of the world's Finally, they approached one of the world's outstanding authorities on adult education and asked him if he knew of any book that met the needs. Finally, they approached one of the world's outstanding authorities on adult education and asked him if he knew of any book that met the needs of this group. No, he replied. I know what these adults want. I know what those adults want, but the book they need has never been written. I knew from experience that this statement was true. For my I knew from experience that this statement was true, for I myself had been searching for years to discover a practical, working handbook on human relations. Since no book had existed, I have tried to write one for use in my own courses, and here it is. I hope you enjoy it. In preparation for this book, I read everything that I could find on the subject. Everything from newspaper columns, magazine articles, records of the family courts, the writing of the old philosophers and the new psychologists. In addition, I hired trained In addition, I hired a trained researcher to spend 1.5 years in various libraries reading everything I had missed, plowing through erudite. In addition, I hired a trained researcher to spend 1.5 years in various libraries reading everything I had missed, plowing through erudite tomes on psychology, poring over hundreds of magazine articles, and searching through the countless biographies, trying to ascertain how the great leaders of all ages have dealt with people. We read their biographies. We read the life stories of all the great leaders from Julius Caesar to Thomas Edison. I recall that we read over 100 biographies of Theodore Roosevelt alone. We were determined to spare no time, no expense, and to discover the practical idea that anyone had ever used, and to discover every We were determined to spare no time, no expense, and to discover every practical idea that anyone had ever used throughout the ages for winning friends and influencing people. I personally interviewed scores of successful people, some of them world famous inventors like Macaroni and Edison, political leaders like Franklin D. Roosevelt and James Farley, business leaders like Owen D. Young, movie stars, movie stars like Clark Gable, uh, movie stars like Clark Gable and Mary Pickford, and explorers like Martin Johnson, and tried to discover the techniques they use in human relations. From all of this material, I prepared a short talk. I called it How to Win Friends and Influence People. I say short, but from all of this material, I prepared a short talk. I called it How to Win Friends and Influence People. I say short. It was short in the beginning, but soon expanded to a lecture that consumed 1 hour and 30 minutes. For years, I gave this talk each season to the adults in the Carnegie Institute courses in New York. I gave the talk and urged the listeners to go out and test it in their business and social contacts, and then come back to class and speak about their experience and the results they had achieved. What an interesting assignment! These men and women, hungry for self improvement, were fascinated by the idea of working in a new kind of laboratory, the first and only laboratory of human relationships for adults that had ever existed. This book wasn't written in the usual sense of the word. It grew as a child grows. It grew and developed out of that laboratory, out of the experiences of thousands of adults. It grew and developed out of that laboratory, out of the experiences of thousands of adults. Years ago, we started with a set of rules printed on a card no longer than a postcard. The next season, we printed a larger card, then a leaflet, then a series of booklets, each one expanding in size and scope. After 15 years of experiment and research came this book. The rules the rules we have set down here are not mere theories or guesswork. They work like magic. Incredible as it sounds, I have seen the application of these principles literally revolutionize the lives of many people. To illustrate, to illustrate, a man with 314 employees joined one of these courses. To illustrate, a man with 314 joined one To illustrate, a man with 314 employees joined one of these courses. For years, he had driven and criticized and condemned his employees without stint or discretion. Kindness, words of appreci- Kindness, words of appreciation and encouragement were alien to his lips. After studying the principles discussed in this book, this employer sharply altered his philosophy on life. His his organization is now inspired with a new loyalty, a new enthusiasm, a new spirit of teamwork. 314 enemies have been turned into 314 friends. As he proudly said in a speech before the class, when I used to walk through my establishment, no one greeted me. My employees actually looked the other way when they saw me approaching, but now they are all my friends, and even the janitor calls me by my first name. This employer gained more profit, more leisure, and what is infinitely more important, he found far more happiness in his business and in his home. Countless numbers of salespeople have sharply increased their sales by the use of these principles. Many have opened up new accounts, accounts that they had been formerly solicited. Many have opened new Many have opened up new accounts, accounts that they had formerly solicited in vain. Executives have been given increased authority, increased pay. One executive reported a large increase in salary because he applied these truths. Another, an executive in the Philadelphia Gas Works Company, was slated for demotion when he was 65 because of his belligerence, because of his inability to lead people skillfully. This training not only saved him from the demotion, but brought him a promotion with increased pay. This training not only saved him from the demotion, but brought him in a pro. This training not only saved him from the demotion, but brought him in. This training not only saved him from promotion. Oh my lord, what was that? That's funny. This training not only saved. I gotta get my voice back. This training not only saved him from the demotion, but brought him a promotion with increased pay. On innumerable occasions, spouses attending the banquet given at the end of the course have told me that their homes have been much happier since the husband or wife started this training. People are frequently astonished at the new results they achieved. It all seems like magic. In some cases, in their enthusiasm, they have teleported. Wow. Telephoned. Telephoned, not teleported. In some cases, in their enthusiasm, they have telephoned me at my home on Sundays because they couldn't wait 48 hours to report their achievements at the regular session of the course. One man was so stirred by a talk on these principles that he sat far into the night discussing them with another member. One man was so stirred by a talk of these principles that he sat far into the night discussing them with another member of the crowd. One man One man was so stirred by a talk on these principles that he sat far into the night discussing them with another member of the class. Oh my god! How many times am I gonna make that mistake? This is all on one page. I made three mistakes on these. One man was so stirred by a talk on these principles that he sat far into the night discussing them with another. One man was so stirred by a talk on these principles that he sat far into the night discussing them with another member of the class, four times, class, 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 CLASSGANGEPASTS, gang, peace. One man was so stirred by a talk on these principles that he sat far into the night discussing them with other members of the class. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the others went home, but he was so shaken by a realization of his own mistakes, so inspired by the vista of the new and richer world opening before him, that he was unable to sleep. He didn't sleep that night, or the next day, or the next night. Who was he? A naive, untrained individual ready to gush over any new theory that came along. Who was he? A naive, untrained individual ready to gush over any new theory that came along? No, far from it. He was a sophisticated, blaze dealer in art. No, far from it. He was sophisticated. He was a sophisticated blaze dealer in art, very much the man about town, who spoke three languages fluently and was a graduate of two European universities. While writing this chapter, I received a letter from a Ger- While writing this chapter, I received a letter from the German of the old school, an aristocrat whose forebears had served for generations as professional army officers under the Hohenzollerns. His letter, written from an His letter, written from a transatlantic steamer, telling about the application of these principles, rose almost to a religious fervor. Another man, an old New Yorker, a Harvard graduate, a wealthy man, the owner of a large carpet factory, declared he had learned more in 14 weeks through this system of training about the fine art of influencing people than he had learned about the same subject during his 4 years of college. Absurd? Laughable? Fantastic? Of course, you are privileged to dismiss this statement with whatever adjective you wish. I am merely reporting, without comment, a declaration made by a conservative and eminently successful Harvard graduate in a public address to approximately 600 people at the Yale Club in New York on the evening of Thursday, February 23rd, 1933. Compared to what we ought to be, said the famous Professor William James of Harvard, compared to what we ought to be, we are only half awake. We are making use of this small part of our physical and mental resources. Stating this thing broadly, the human individual is what? Compared to what we ought to be, said the famous Professor William James of Harvard, compared to what we ought to be, we are only half awake. We are making use of only a small part of our physical and mental resources. Stating the thing broadly, the human individual thus lives far within his limits. He possesses powers of various sorts which he habitually fails to use. Those powers which you habitually fail to use is the sole purpose of this book. Those powers which you habitually fail to use, the sole purpose of this those powers which you habitually fail to use. The sole purpose of this book is to help you discover, develop, and profit by those dormant and unused assets. Education, said by Dr. G. Gibbon. Education. Education, said by Dr. G. Gibbon, former president of Princeton University, is the ability to meet life situations. If by time you have finished reading the first 3 chapters of this book, if you aren't then if you aren't then a little better equipped to meet life situations, then I shall consider this book to be a total failure, so far as you are concerned. For the great aim of education, said Herbert Spencer, is not knowledge, but action. And this is an action book. Dale Carnegie, 1963.